Inspired by a true story. They say every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. In the history of modern British society, this statement found its darkest and most terrifying embodiment in the person of Mick Philpott. For him, children were not little beings in need of love and protection. They were his personal cash cows, a tool for claiming state benefits and a lever of power over those around him. Philpott was pathologically hungry for fame, narcissistic, and, according to later medical assessments, a clinical psychopath who turned the life of anyone who entered his orbit into a living hell. The shadow of a monster, the first steps on a path of violence. This man's story began in 1956 in Derby, England, and even in his youth, his true nature began to break through the mask of charm. At 19, he met 15-year-old Kim Hill. At first, Kim saw him as the perfect partner, but the fairy tale quickly turned into a nightmare. Philpott began to display uncontrollable aggression, beating her even in public. Once in a pub, he hit her in the face with a pool cue so hard that she began bleeding profusely, but witnesses were too frightened to intervene. His cruelty was inventive and methodical. He could break Kim's arm or smash her kneecap with a hammer simply because she paid too much attention to another child she was babysitting. While serving in the British Army, he constantly accused her of infidelity and once shot her in the groin with a crossbow, deeming her skirt too short. Kim, still a schoolgirl, was so terrified that for years she lied about the causes of her injuries, protecting her tormentor. In July 1978, Kim mustered the courage to send him a breakup letter. Philpott's response was swift and bloody. He deserted from the army, broke into her home, and stabbed her 27 times with a 9-inch knife, declaring, "If I can't have you, no one will." When Kim's mother tried to save her daughter, he stabbed the woman 11 times. Paramedics arriving at the scene found Philpott on the stairs with a bloody knife. He cynically told them, "I wouldn't bother. She's not going to make it. I did a good job." Kim survived 2 cardiac arrests, but miraculously pulled through, though the consequences of that massacre haunt her 40 years later. The court sentenced him to 7.5 years, but due to good behavior, he was released after just 3 years and 2 months. Effectively nothing more than a slap on the wrist that gave him no incentive to change. King of the council house and his harem released in 1986, Philpott continued his cycle of abuse. After a marriage to Pamela Locks ended with her fleeing in fear, the 37-year-old Mick began a relationship with 14-year-old Heather Keogh. He essentially coerced her into running away from home on her 16th birthday. For failing to bear him a daughter, they had 2 sons. He beat her and even taught his older sons to be violent towards her. Once he locked her in the garden in freezing weather, and when she tried to leave, he held a knife to her throat. By 2000, Philpott had found a new victim, 19-year-old Mairead Duffy, and soon 16-year-old orphan Lisa Willis joined them. He created a bizarre and toxic family. In a 3-bedroom council house, he lived simultaneously with his wife Mairead and his mistress Lisa. Both women worked while Philpott remained unemployed, taking all their earnings and state benefits, which amounted to around £25,000 a year. Mick Philpott became a notorious media figure, Britain's most famous scrounger. He appeared on television, including on The Jeremy Kyle Show, where he aggressively demanded a bigger house from the authorities for his 11 children. However, behind the facade of the caring father lurked a tyrant. MP Ann Widdecombe, who lived with them for a week for a documentary, noted that he called his women bitches, and the children never sought affection or comfort from him. A plan born of greed and revenge. When in February 2012, Lisa Willis found the strength to escape, taking 5 of the children with her, Philpott's world was shaken. But he wasn't worried about the children. He was concerned about the loss of control and the reduction in benefit payments. He was furious. Together with Mairead and their mutual friend Paul Mosley, he devised a plan that seemed brilliant to him: to set fire to his own house, frame Lisa, claiming she committed the arson out of revenge, and heroically rescue the children from the flames. This was supposed to guarantee him victory in the custody battle and the return of his financial assets, the children. On May 11, 2012, at 4 a.m., they poured petrol through the letterbox of the front door and set it alight. But the fire didn't wait for the hero. The flames spread instantly, cutting off the escape route. The temperature in the children's bedrooms on the second floor exceeded 500 degrees Celsius. That night, 6 children perished. Jade, 10 years old, a clever girl, a favorite of her teachers. John, 9 years old, a polite and always smiling boy. Jack, 7 years old, a quiet and modest child. Jesse, 6 years old, the bright and noisy soul of the family. Jaden, 5 years old, a little boy who loved to cuddle. Duane, 13 years old, the older brother who tried to protect the younger ones until the end, but died in hospital 2 days later. The mask removed, investigation, and sentencing. Immediately after the tragedy, Philpott began playing the role of the grief-stricken father, but his behavior left the police aghast. At the morgue, he fooled around and even jokingly applied a martial arts move to a family liaison officer. At a press conference, he appeared unnatural, and backstage he flirted with a female police officer, calling her beautiful and inviting her to his hotel. The decisive factors were the pieces of evidence. 1. Traces of petrol were found on the clothing of Mick, Mered, and Paul Mosley. 2. Covert recordings. Police installed listening devices in their hotel room and police car. The recordings captured Mick instructing Mered to stick to their story. "You've got to stick to your guns. It's my fault we lost the kids." 3. A shocking detail. It emerged that a few hours before the fire, Philpott forced his wife Mered to have sex with Paul Mosley on a pool table in a pub, a perverse way to guarantee the accomplice's loyalty. In 2013, they were found guilty of manslaughter. The judge noted that while they did not plan to kill the children, their guilt was immeasurable. Mick Philpott received a life sentence with a minimum term of 15 years. Mered and Paul Mosley received 17 years each. But the public was shocked when Mered was released in 2020, having served only half her sentence and being given a new identity for protection. Mosley was also released, rearrested for breaching his license conditions, and released again in 2023. This story remains one of the darkest chapters in British criminal history, a tale of how human greed and psychopathy can lead to the destruction of the most sacred thing in the world, the lives of one's own children.